The text message glowed, illuminating my face in the darkened living room. "Running late, babe. Big client dinner. Don't wait up." It was from my wife, and a familiar pang of unease twisted in my gut. Lately, her business dinners had become more frequent, stretching late into the night. I tried to shake it off, chalking it up to her ambitious nature, her drive to succeed. But a tiny, insistent voice in my head whispered otherwise. The next morning, the unease lingered. I found her in the kitchen, already dressed for work, sipping coffee. Her smile seemed a little too bright, her eyes a little too evasive when I asked about the dinner. "Oh, it was fine," she said, quickly changing the subject. "Just a lot of talk about market projections and quarterly reports. You know, boring stuff." I nodded, feigning understanding, but the knot in my stomach tightened. Days bled into weeks, each one marked by increasingly late nights and vague explanations. I started noticing little things. A new, expensive perfume that wasn't mine. Her phone always face down, always locked. A dismissive wave of the hand when I suggested we spend more time together. The intimacy between us, once a vibrant flame, had dwindled to a flickering ember. One evening, I couldn't take it anymore. She told me she was going to a networking event that night. I knew the restaurant she usually frequented for these things. It was a high-end place, all dimly lit corners and hushed conversations. On a whim, or perhaps driven by a desperate need for answers, I decided to go, not to confront her, not yet, just to observe, to see for myself. I arrived an hour after she'd supposedly left, dressed casually, hoping to blend in. The maitre d' gave me a polite nod and led me to a small, secluded table near the back. From there, I had a clear view of the entire dining room. My heart pounded in my chest, a frantic drumbeat against my ribs. I scanned the faces, a mix of business types and couples enjoying quiet evenings. And then I saw her. She was seated at a corner booth, laughing, her head thrown back, a genuine, uninhibited laugh I hadn't heard from her in months. Across from her sat a man. He was older, distinguished, with a confident air and a predatory gleam in his eyes. Her boss, I realized with a jolt. The one she always spoke of with such reverence, such admiration. They were deep in conversation, their faces close, a bottle of expensive wine chilling between them. A cold dread spread through me, chilling me to the bone. It wasn't the kind of conversation colleagues shared over a business dinner. Their body language, the way they leaned into each other, the intimate smiles, it screamed something else entirely. I ordered a drink, my hand trembling slightly as I lifted the glass to my lips. I tried to rationalize it, to tell myself I was overreacting, that it was just an innocent dinner. But the knot in my stomach was now a full-blown fist, twisting and turning. Then it happened. He reached for her hand. Slowly, deliberately, my breath hitched in my throat. She didn't pull away. Instead, her fingers intertwined with his, a secret embrace hidden beneath the pristine white tablecloth. My blood ran cold. The clinking of glasses, the murmur of conversations, all faded into a distant hum. All I could see was their intertwined hands, a silent testament to a betrayal I had feared but never truly believed. A surge of white-hot anger, raw and primal, coursed through me. My vision blurred for a moment, and I gripped the edge of the table, knuckles white. I wanted to stand up, to storm over there, to shatter their quiet little charade. But something held me back. A strange, almost morbid curiosity. I needed to see how far this went. I needed to understand. I watched them for what felt like an eternity, every shared glance, every soft touch, a dagger to my heart. They finished their meal, and he leaned in, whispering. Something in her ear that made her blush and laugh. He paid the bill and they rose, still holding hands as they walked towards the exit. My mind raced, a jumble of accusations, hurt, and a desperate need for answers. I followed them, keeping a discreet distance, my heart a lead weight in my chest. They walked out into the cool night air, and he hailed a cab. Before they got in, he pulled her close, his arms wrapping around her. And then he kissed her. Not a polite peck on the cheek, but a long, passionate kiss that left no room for doubt. My world crumbled. The air left my lungs, and I felt a profound emptiness settle within me. I stood there, paralyzed, watching the taxi disappear into the night. The anger was replaced by a crushing wave of despair. My wife, the woman I had built a life with, shared my deepest secrets with, planned a future with, she was cheating on me. The realization hit me like a physical blow. I walked home in a daze, the city lights a blur. The key felt heavy in my hand as I unlocked the front door. The house was dark, silent, a stark contrast to the storm raging within me. I collapsed onto the couch, staring at the empty space beside me, a hollow ache in my chest. What was I going to do? Confront her? Pretend I didn't know? The questions swirled, a relentless torment. The next morning, she came home, chirpy as ever, full of excuses about a late-night presentation. I looked at her, really looked at her, and saw a stranger. The woman I loved was gone, replaced by a facade. I couldn't bring myself to speak the words, to voice the accusation. The pain was too raw, too fresh. Over the next few days, I became a ghost in my own home. I watched her, observed her every move, searching for a sign, a flicker of remorse, anything. But there was nothing, just the same bright smile, the same evasive answers. The silence between us grew thick and suffocating. One evening, I found a small, intricately wrapped gift in her purse. It was a delicate silver locket. My stomach churned. I knew it wasn't from me. My mind immediately went to him, to the man who had stolen her heart, who had stolen our life. The desire to confront her, to scream, to break something, was overwhelming. But I held back. A new plan was forming, a desperate, dangerous gamble. I decided to play along, to let her think she was getting away with it. I started subtly planting seeds of doubt, mentioning how tired she looked, how much she was working. I made sure to be home when she usually returned, offering to make her coffee, to talk about her day. I watched her closely, searching for any sign of discomfort, any crack in her carefully constructed facade. Then came the second twist. I received an anonymous email, a single attachment, a photo of her and him dining at a different restaurant, holding hands, their faces bathed in the warm glow of candlelight. The date stamp was from 2 months ago, long before I'd even suspected anything. My blood ran cold. This wasn't a recent fling. This had been going on for a while, and someone else knew. The anonymous email changed everything. Who sent it? Why? Was it someone trying to help me, or someone trying to cause more trouble? The thought that someone else knew about her betrayal, that it wasn't just my private hell, made me feel exposed, vulnerable. It also ignited a new resolve within me. I wasn't just going to suffer in silence anymore. I decided to confront him first. Not in a fit of rage, but with cold, calculated precision. I found his office address, his work schedule. I planned my approach, every word, every gesture. I wanted him to know I knew, and I wanted him to see the consequences of his actions. The thought of his reaction, of seeing the smug confidence wiped from his face, gave me a perverse satisfaction. The day of the confrontation arrived. My hands were clammy, my heart hammering against my ribs, but my resolve was unwavering. I walked into his opulent office building, past the polite receptionist, and into the sleek, modern elevator. Each floor felt like a step closer to the precipice. When I finally stood before his closed office door, I took a deep breath. This was it, the moment of truth. I pushed the door open, ready to unleash the storm within me. But the scene that greeted me was not what I expected. He was there, slumped over his desk, his face pale, his eyes wide and vacant. And beside him, standing over him, was a woman I didn't recognize, a cold, triumphant smirk playing on her lips. She held a vial in her hand. My wife's locket lay open on the desk next to a framed photo of them, his wife. "You're too late," the woman said, her voice dripping with venom. "He got what he deserved." My mind reeled. What in the world was happening? The woman stepped forward, and I saw a chilling resemblance to him. His sister, perhaps. Or even more unsettling, his scorned wife. The truth, when it finally emerged, was far more twisted than I could have ever imagined. She was his actual wife and the anonymous email sender. She had been tracking her husband's infidelity, not just with my wife, but with numerous others, and she had decided to take matters into her own hands. My wife, it turned out, was not just a participant in a sordid affair. She was a pawn in a much larger, darker game. The man, her boss, had been preying on vulnerable women in the company, using his power and charm to manipulate them. His wife, a woman scorned and seeking justice, had been meticulously gathering evidence, waiting for the opportune moment to strike. And I unknowingly had stumbled into the very heart of her revenge. The locket, I realized, was not a gift from him to my wife, but a tool of surveillance, a tiny camera hidden within its intricate design. My wife had been gathering evidence for his wife, a twisted accomplice in a scheme that would bring him down. The realization hit me with the force of a tidal wave. My wife wasn't cheating on me for love or lust. She was working for his wife, gathering evidence of his myriad affairs, including with herself, to expose him. The air was thick with unspoken truths and shattered illusions. The woman, his wife, looked at me, a strange mix of triumph and despair in her eyes. "He was a monster," she whispered, her voice raw with pain. "And your wife, she helped me expose him. She was one of his victims, too." My world tilted on its axis. My wife a victim. The cheating, the lies, the late nights, it wasn't betrayal, but a dangerous, clandestine operation. I left his office, my mind a maelstrom of emotions. Anger, confusion, but also a strange, unsettling understanding. The woman, his wife, had disappeared, leaving me with the chilling revelation. I returned home, not to confront my wife with accusations, but with a desperate need for the full truth. The story she told me, over tearful confessions and broken apologies, was even more harrowing than I could have imagined. She had been trapped, manipulated, forced into a dangerous game by a man who wielded power like a weapon. The affair was a carefully constructed facade, a means to expose him, to bring him to justice. and I, her husband, had been kept in the dark to protect me from the danger. The unraveling of her story was painful, each detail a fresh wound, but also a step towards healing. The trust between us had been shattered, but in its place, a fragile understanding began to grow. We had a long road ahead, a path paved with therapy and difficult conversations, but for the first time in months, I felt a glimmer of hope. The cheating story, it turned out, was not the end of our marriage, but the chaotic, terrifying beginning of a new chapter, one built on